Ghana 2, South Korea 1. Best of luck.
Ghana 2, Korea 0. Best of wishes.
Ghana 3, Korea 2. We're getting our first 3 points. Shoot. Okay, so the formation, what are your impressions of the formation, the team selection, and the first half performance in general? Now you want to go first?
Okay, so I personally didn't have an issue with the way the team was structured. I had an issue with probably the people who were actually designated to do some of the job. So my main issue is if you are playing a 5-back and all the defenders in all the players we are playing in there are defensive minded, then practically you are always putting 5 people behind the ball.
Sure.
If you are playing 5 people behind the ball, that means when you move forward, in terms of numbers, you always be short. So we saw it in the game in instances where the ball had to come back again and actually put us back under pressure. So I believe that was wrong. If you are playing a 5-back and also putting 2 holding midfielders in front of a 5-back, practically you are playing a 7 defender, and the last person I saw do that was Alex Ferguson, and I don't think he wanted to win that match anyway. But the main issue is that if another issue too, if you are playing with a 5-back, then you are looking at a counter attacking football.
Sure.
So who is there to help? I know Gudos is fast, I know Naki is fast, but the issue is they will need support. So if all the 5 defenders back there are defensive minded, then the transition becomes terrible. So it gets to a point where the ball goes forward and it has 3 opposing defenders marking him, and he will lose the ball. No fault of his, but the team was set up in such a way that moving forward they were bent on to lose. Not to do well.
For me, I think even before the match started and then I saw the formation, I was disappointed because I think it wasn't the best. 5-4-1 wasn't the best. Looking at the fact that we were playing against Portugal, so it wasn't the best for me. I wasn't expecting much, and then again I realized that because of the formation, anytime Ayew got the ball, he had to go back instead of moving forward, and so there's almost always just one person, and then the distance is quite
wide.
Passing or a shot wasn't going to help, so he constantly has to keep going back, which wasn't helping with efforts they put into the game. Even though yes, they did well, but then because there wasn't anyone to move the ball to, because I think looking at how we played, we had a lot of chances to have scored more, but then we ended up at 2 because of the formation. Yeah, but how about the other side of the coin? Some people will say we ended the first half goalless and ended the second half conceding 3, even though we also scored 2. So what if we had repeated the same formation and ended up goalless with a point?
So the issue is probably the end sometimes justify the means.
Sure.
But in this case, when you play such a formation and you concede, you are forced to open up. And opening up with such a formation is deadly. Because we have players who are not attacking minded who will be pushing forward, which is more dangerous than. So the issue is if my issue is the moment you conceded, that should have been where the changes should have come in. So if probably we scored about 5 minutes after we conceded, so probably they couldn't make the change before we equalized. But my issue is that if you play a certain formation and you believe the formation is a bit derivative, the issue is that you should make sure you get it right. When you get it right, you get high praises. The moment you concede, then you are forced to change your team, because even with a 5-back, to be able to twist the formation around, you need at least 2 changes. So probably you are changing 2 players who are not tired or probably are doing okay, but because of tactical reasons or technical reasons, you have to change them. Acceptable. But if you start with a formation like that, then you should make sure you get the results you want.
I don't remember the last time Ghana played with 5 out and out defenders in such a game. I don't really remember the last time. Personally, I don't believe in the 5-back system.
Okay.
I don't. The reason is that even though we have players who play in better leagues outside, they have access to better tactical formations and they understand that system. Whenever we play as Ghana, if I look at all the successful teams we've had, from the junior side to the senior side, it has always been the traditional 4-4-2, and then in some instances, in recent times, maybe the 4-2-3-1, which is also more like the 4-4-2 with a little variation up front. It's quite flexible, it's quite default, it's quite natural, and they seem to flow with it very well. And that brings me to the kind of players who were selected, like you mentioned earlier. I wouldn't play Dede and Kudus together for no reason.
It was a bad idea.
You see, sometimes as a coach, when you look at your bench, you should have confidence. You should be happy that you have Dede and Kudus. Pick one at a time. For me, I think he set up with that system because he was trying to put all his best players on the field. Probably beyond the defeatist mentality that Portugal is a strong team, I need to defend. He more or less doesn't want to offend the big boys. So let me create space for all of them to play. And for me, that is bad. Because Kamal Dean, the guy who got the second goal, is it Sule, what's his name? Bukari is practically our best player in current form this season.
And can easily play as a wing back.
Why do you put Bukari on the bench and force Kudus as a winger? Force the Ayew as a winger. So let's look at the individual performance, or we can look at it from departmental perspective. The goalkeeping, the defense, the midfield, and then the attack. So Tidora, you want to start? You can pick from any of the departments.
I think the goalkeeper was good.
Okay.
Looking at the first half, at a point, Portugal had 5 goal attempts.
Yeah.
And I think he really did well, saving some or deflecting. I think he really did a good job. Another person that
But before you proceed, is it because of the kind of expectation we had that make you feel like, okay, the goalkeeper did well, or in general, you think he was just good?
In general, he was good.
Okay.
I wasn't expecting that would win.
Okay.
Or actually, I wasn't expecting that would even score 2.
Okay.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
So I was really impressed.
Okay.
They did a good job. And the keeper was good. Okay. Another person that I think really did well was Williams.
Okay.
Looking at where he was positioned, if he constantly had someone to assist him, I think he would have given us enough goals for yesterday. Yeah, those were my 2 top people for yesterday's match.
There's a lot of talk about Babarama.
He's a problem.
I personally believe he wasn't bad on that day. He made a mistake.
Okay.
He made one mistake, contributed to 2 goals.
Sure.
Technically, that's a positive.
2-1.
Yeah, 2-1 as a positive. But he made a mistake. Sure. Probably he shouldn't have tried to take the ball, but should have concentrated on the player.
Okay.
Should have let the ball go and concentrated on the player. Because sometimes when you're in transition like that and try to take a ball, you have to stop.
Yeah.
That gives the player who is moving from the ball, moving the ball, the pass is supposed to go to the advantage. Because if you don't get the ball, you have to catch up.
Sure.
And you won't catch up. So sometimes you should just let the ball go.
Yeah.
You let the ball go and concentrate on the space and marking the player.
Sure.
So I believe that he made a mistake.
Yeah.
If you are not so sure, especially a defender, even when the ball is shot at goal, if you are not so sure you can clear the ball, don't stick your leg in there.
Yeah.
So he should have just let the ball pass him, then position himself in a better way of in covering the space and the player. Probably what Joao Felix would have done was probably do a cutback and pass the ball.
Yeah.
If he had just maintained this position and everything. Generally, I don't think anybody did terribly on that day, except the few mistakes we made that led to the second and the third goal. I believe Partey shouldn't have passed the ball across the field like that. And sometimes when you are playing, there were excitement in the class. Usually, when you are playing a match, the fans kind of warn you when their players are behind you.
Yeah.
But when there's been goals and shocks in such a short moment, they don't help you with that. So Jordan didn't know the player was behind him.
Yeah.
The players around him could have helped him.
Yeah.
But the issue is that sometimes you as a player, you should trap the ball before you turn. So that might be a mistake too. So he turns, saw the player and tried to play the ball through the legs and then win. So I believe those, but in general, there weren't so many mistakes in the ball. My only issue is the setup and the personnel. People were put into positions to do what they were supposed to do and they did it. Alidu was fantastic, though it didn't help us in getting goals or going forward. The three central defenders were fantastic, solid. I personally don't believe the Ronaldo thing was a penalty, but
we'll come to officiating.
You remember I told you the decisions they took in terms of not showing the VAR and all those things were just a way of getting the African teams.
They actually claimed the center went off.
That they could have really communicated that.
So for me,
the issue is there is actually not any limitations when it comes to when you should go back to a foul or a penalty or anything like that. There are no limitations with that.
But I would say the goalkeeper wasn't bad.
Yeah.
And I will acknowledge that it's also partly because of my expectation. Because I think that is the weakest part of our team, the goalkeeping. Yeah, but on the day, it wasn't bad. In terms of the defense, yes, people have spoken a lot about Baba Rahman, but I tend to agree with you because if you look at it from the negative and the positive side, I mean, the accounts will say your consumer or boy.
The guy practically made one mistake.
He did well, not that bad. The transition was a problem, and we can't blame the central attacking midfielders because of the way the team was set up. Yeah. I personally felt that Williams could have done a little better with his running. You know, in such a setup, you have to be pressing. Okay, but I felt that probably a younger Afenajan would have done more pressing. Than I saw with Williams. They did okay for me, but I felt he should have did a lot more runs. He shouldn't have finished 90 minutes because I feel a lot more runs would have made him exhausted and for that matter taken out early. Because for such a formation, your striker must be a horse. You have to run and press as much as possible. Yeah. So team performance, it wasn't bad, and then we made very good use of the opportunities that came our way. If I'm right, I think all the 2 shots on target were those that gave us goals. Or there were a few other shots on target.
I believe there was one.
There was one.
There was one. Yeah.
So I tend to agree with you in many ways, but I personally believe Inaki was not bad, but I believe it should have gone off. I thought the time Goodos was going off, I thought it was Inaki that was going to go off.
And then perhaps that brings in the tactical aspect, the substitutions. What were your impressions? Were they on point? Were they right? The timing, the moment we did the substitution, just as the day you was still celebrating his goal on the bench, they scored another goal. He didn't even see the goal. He had just come off the pitch, hugging the players on the bench and still celebrating, only to hear in the background that Ghana has conceded, and he was so disappointed. What's your opinion on the substitutions and the timing?
I personally believe the job Jordan Ayew was brought on to do, they could have brought Elisha Owusu to do, because practically was put in the middle. Okay. Because he can actually hold the ball, acceptable. But the guy came in and made 2 mistakes that practically contributed to goal. I believe if you are bringing a player in, you should bring him based on the strengths.
Let me get this clear. They brought in Jordan. In your opinion, you think Elisha would have been better because the idea was that come and hold the ball. Does it mean that at that point the coach was still looking for a drawn game?
Not necessarily, but we're being overrun in midfield.
Okay.
And the issue is that what Jordan can do is he can break up play.
Okay.
He holds the ball well, so the only option you have is to foul him.
Okay.
So the Portuguese were practically controlling the midfield and everything. Jordan can hold the ball.
Yeah.
You play the ball to him, he either passes the ball or you have to foul him for him to lose it.
Sure.
So it's quite good at, though on the day he didn't really do it that much, but he's quite good at it. So that is what they brought him to do. Probably hold the ball just to make sure that we get some breather.
Yeah.
To be able, because what the issue is that certain players were not getting breathers on the ball. So Kudos get the ball and surrounded by about 3
The
players.
Portuguese were pressing hard.
Yeah.
They really were.
And Inaki was I isolated too. So he gets the ball, he has to do with about 3 defenders there. So the issue is that because we were practically defensive, we stifled our offensive players off the ball, and the few moments they had the ball, they had no room to maneuver.
Sure.
There were times where Kudos had to probably dribble some particular players about twice.
Sure.
The same player, because they are practically on him.
Yeah.
So all that they were doing was they are trying to push him away from. So he dribbles, and at the end of the day, he goes backwards and passes the ball to a defender that is free and all that. So I believe we are talking about tactics too, but I believe the Portuguese also set up to players. They understood the players we had, they understood the position they had, and they did it to perfection. They knew who they should draw out of the defense when they had to do it and all that, and they did it to perfection. But I personally believe we set ourselves up to fail.
Okay,
from
so
the beginning.
in your opinion, the substitutions were right, except that you would have preferred Elisha in place of Jordan.
Even if he had allowed the team to settle like probably Jordan could have done what he wanted him to do, because I've seen him even do it for Crystal Palace and about twice, though not many times, but twice this season. Okay. So I personally believe he could have done it, but he was unlucky. Okay. He was new in the game. The issue is that we're playing against a very good opposition. Yeah. And because we are Ghanaians and we are analyzing the game, we are always looking at it from our viewpoint. And that's another issue. But the issue is that they knew he was new in the team.
Yeah. And
so the moment he got the ball, they rushed him.
He didn't warm up.
Yes.
He didn't warm up. Yeah.
So that's the issue.
And
these smart players know this. The players are smart. Yeah. They see him come into the game. They know he has not settled in. Yeah. And they will make sure you don't settle. Yeah. So instantly they hack you. Yeah. So the moment he got the ball, they were practically on him and didn't have the space. He made a mistake. But the issue is that the coach had moved players from a position, a midfield, where a place where Kudos was supposed to be offensive but was always striking back and helping them, were failing. Yeah. And instantly there were 2 mistakes made in that area, and there was space for players to run, have time on the ball, and to find the right passes. So moving those players out of those space actually at that time didn't help, and the fact that the players who came into did not settle. I believe when those changes were made, we should have at least been defensive for a bit before we tried moving forward. Yeah.
So Tibura, what's your own view on that? Because if not for anything at all, one of them scored.
Well, yes, one of them scored, but we needed fresh legs, but I don't think Jordan was the best fresh legs we needed. I think we had other better options on the bench. And even though that bit of the substitution where he took out Jordan and Kudos, I think he should have left one of them, but at least it would have been fair if Ayew went out, and then if Jordan was who really wanted to substitute, Jordan would be in the game. It shouldn't have been a case of but I really think that substitutions were okay, but I don't think Jordan was one of the fresh legs we needed.
Yeah, I also believe the time was good. You know, in football, I never played professional football, but I mean, when your team is winning, when you observe goalkeepers, very good goalkeepers, they know how to read the game. In football, there's what they call moments. There are times that sometimes a whole half belongs to one team, another half belongs to the other team. Sometimes you play for like 15 minutes or 10 minutes, then it turns over. Very good goalkeepers can observe this. When they realize that the pressure is on them, sometimes even when they are, lagging behind, they will still delay the game just to kill the tempo of your opponents. And usually the tempo goes high when you have just scored, even when you have more goals to still have some deficit to fill, you get that energy. And that is why I was so furious about Bukhari guy when he scored the goal and he decided to go and celebrate instead of picking the ball from the net and restarting the game. So at a time that the adrenaline is high, they just scored a goal, motivation is high, then you just pull them out. I think the timing was bad. It was just so bad. And then in terms of the personnel, Bukari was spot on. Personally, I believe he should have even started the game.
Ahead of
And I also tend to agree with you that Jordan shouldn't have had a part in this game at all. He shouldn't have had a part in this game. So maybe we can look at.
I wouldn't have minded him playing, but I shouldn't have gone into that position. Especially, and I don't think we should have moved two players occupying practically the same position at a goal.
Sure.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have moved because though Gudos was supposed to be a striker who was playing in midfield, we all know that he was behind the ball.
Sure.
Though the day was supposed to help offensively, he was also behind the ball.
Sure.
Those players were practically occupying the space we lost the ball in both times. And we shouldn't have moved two players out of that position. It should have been probably not at a, even if you thought they were tied, it shouldn't be at a goal. Probably one, another 5 minutes later. Or something.
I have always said that I wouldn't play those two together at any point. I wouldn't. I would rather keep one.
I get you. Yeah, the similarities.
In my opinion, they are all pure number 10.
Yeah.
And I'll keep one on the pitch at any, especially when Kudus has fitness issues. Okay, he's prone to injury, and Dede Ayew for some time now has also have issues with injuries. So you don't risk by playing both when you know that any of them can change the game
for you at any
half.
time.
Anyway, so officiating, a lot has been said about whether the penalty was a real penalty or not, as to whether the VAR guys were on holiday or they were enjoying the game, or whether the VAR system was actually working. Some said the system was probably not working.
No.
And there is also issues around the goal Ronaldo scored, which was disallowed. So officiating in general.
I believe the goal that was disallowed was acceptable. It was the issue is you when we all did some small football and we're playing this small sport, they tell you can show the player with your shoulder but not with your extended arm. So especially when you have an arm underneath another player's armpit or in this side and you push, actually extend your arm, is a foul.
It's a foul, okay.
Another two is he was the whistle was played before he was composed on the ball and kicked it.
Okay. So before he kicked the ball, the whistle had
already gone. So that one too is not an issue for me.
In any case, it shouldn't have a yellow card.
Yeah, I shouldn't have even kicked the ball because there was a clear whistle before he composed himself on the ball and kicked it.
I see.
That's the issue. So I personally believe that thing too. On a penalty, I understand if the referee makes a mistake, but I was surprised VAR didn't intervene because from the angle, you could see the referee go round a player before he whistled. He was behind them.
Yeah.
From that position, it could have easily been a foul to him because he wouldn't have seen who kicked the ball.
Yeah.
So I personally believe that is acceptable. But personally, I was surprised why they didn't intervene, and I don't know why they didn't intervene. On other issues, I believe he was a bit too enthusiastic in flashing out setting yellow card. Kudos, yellow card was a yellow card, acceptable. I don't have an issue with that. I believe when talented players are a bit frustrated, they tend to act out, and that kicking that player was him acting out, being frustrated in the game. So I believe he should be able to manage his emotions and he should be stopped too. Alidu's case, I believe he almost played himself into a tight corner, but he was lucky. And the issue is guilt.
Yeah.
He didn't get a red card because of the guilt of the referee. The referee knew what he had done.
Yeah.
A person he was fully aware of what he had done. And sometimes guilt goes in. That's the only reason why I didn't get a second yellow card. I personally believe probably Joao is extending his head can also be deemed as a foul, but he shouldn't have pushed him. He shouldn't have reacted. Sometimes the reaction also is more seen as a more retaliation against it. Retaliation is more punishable than usually the initial foul. So in terms of officiating, there were issues. The Loa thing wasn't an offside. though we would want it to be, but it wasn't. The issue is that it's passion, and sometimes the way the angle of the screen and all those things, you might think it was nowhere near the Salisu. It was actually, the issue is I believe Jiku was even ahead of him. So there were two Ghanaian players who were actually ahead of him. If you look at the angles and people bringing out their rulers all on Twitter and all those things, you can actually see that, though for the fun of it and at bashing the referee and actually trying to find more things to add to why the referee was mad, is the reason why we're doing that. But most Ghanaians know that
it wasn't an offside.
It wasn't an offside. They've actually brought it out. They brought the.
Well, I have seen something on social media, but as to the authenticity, whether it's official or not.
But
from what I saw, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because when you look at the 18-yard box line and you look at the imaginary line they've drawn to indicate the offside, it doesn't make sense. They go this way. They are supposed to be parallel.
No.
So depending on the angle from which you shoot, and that's where I have an issue.
Daniel, let me just ask you one. When you look at a straight road, that's supposed to be how the sides are supposed to be. In the distance, they always converge. So it's just an issue of angles and where it was shot from and all that. But the issue is that if they had given us this at the instant of it happening, everybody would have been okay. But it's taking a day. And people would, conspiracy theorists will come up with
this. When you are shooting a tournament with even CAN 2000 and was it CAN 2000 and the one was hosted in Ghana 10 or 8? 8. Even that one we had 18 cameras. So you can imagine the number of cameras that are being used there. I understand the new technology in the ball, that motion sensor, has about 12 cameras following the ball only. So you can imagine the number of possible angles they can pick. And depending on which angle they pick, the interpretation might be different. So if you go and sleep 24 hours and you come and you give me an angle, you are giving room for doubt. Tudora, what's your impression?
Well, I mean, that penalty that was awarded, I really find it suspicious. And I found it suspicious when they said the VR center was off at a point. Was that communicated? If it wasn't communicated, what were they trying to achieve? So there's
actually been a communication that VR was off?
Yes.
Really?
From like discussions I've had today.
That's interesting.
Yes. And so what were you trying to achieve in that very moment? That referee didn't see, or what referee saw is different from something else that's recorded, and so a penalty was awarded. So I think I personally have a problem with the penalty. And what do you call it?
The yellow cards.
The yellow cards. The one that this guy, is it Salid or whatever they call it? Alidu. I think from the start of the game, I noticed that I felt it was intentional to frustrate the Portuguese player. And so when he didn't get the red card, I was really shocked. Because if I were to have given him a card, I'd give him a red card. Because it was so uncalled for. It wasn't necessary. Basically, I think that's it for me.
And in terms of the offside decision,
some were a bit skeptical.
Okay, so I would say that the referee was not bad. I don't belong to the school of thought that we are Africa, the cheaters is being sent to cheaters.
Oh yeah, I've seen that going around.
I say so because
racism.
If we indeed had the intention to come cheaters, Alidu would have been off. Because that would have been a perfect time to weaken the team. Beyond that, right at the beginning of the game, he was very tolerant.
He was.
I saw him give a lot of talks, a lot of warnings that I personally feel that as a referee,
yellow card.
If I were a referee, I would have been that no nonsense kind of referee. Because what I've observed is that usually when you excuse the first one and you try to talk to them, you embolden them, you embolden the opponents. they do it, and when you try to punish, they refer you to the previous
one.
So I believe in the kind of refereeing where once the offense is committed, if it's a red card, issue it. It doesn't matter whether it's the first time. It's very common with our local players. If you watch the Ghana Premier League, they commit a foul and they want to tell the referee it's my first time. What nonsense is that? You see, a foul is a foul. And I don't know who trained them.
No, the issue
and
is
I
that
tend to agree that Alidu was excessively aggressive.
Yes.
And someone must speak to him. Because you see, that could have caused us. It could have really caused us. I
personally believe if Joao Felix had not touched him, he would have gotten a red card.
No, the point is okay.
No, the issue is that as a player, you are not supposed to make head contact with any other player.
Sure.
So if Joao Felix in leaning forward had not touched Alidu, Alidu pushing his head forward or probably touching would have gotten the red card. But it was a situation where if it was being interpreted, it could have easily been red card both places. Because you are not supposed to touch another player with your head.
But the question is, you don't retaliate. That's the whole point. So even if you are slapped, even if you are kicked in the balls, no retaliation. That's the whole point.
I know.
And you see, and especially when you're already on a card. So if the referee had decided to punish both with
it could have been yellow.
Then that's it. You are off.
That's true.
You're off.
So it could have been yellow. So he actually ignoring both. I don't have a problem with it. But I personally believe there were little incidents that there were fouls and all those things, which I believe
should have gone to our advantage.
And the referee should have let it go.
I disagree. Personally, I disagree. I think that the referee was okay. He did well. The only problem is that VAR didn't help him. Because trust me, if VAR had called him to check the offside goal, the goal that we believe was an offside, at least we would have consoled ourselves that it's a good goal. And then in the case of the penalty, we would have also seen whichever angle they will show to us to convince us that it was a penalty, and still would have consoled ourselves. But because the referee was denied that opportunity, he's seen as being unfair, racist to Ghanaians. And I'm surprised that the FA actually petitioned FIFA, because sometimes that is the kind of best officiating you can get as an African team. Personally, I think the referee was good.
I in petitioning the FIFA in terms of the refereeing is not really, does not really have to do with just the person in the middle. The VAR room are part of the refereeing team, so it's everybody, and I believe they are not wrong. The issue with Africans and decision not going our ways, we tend to say, let's forget it. Let's move on to the next game. The issue is, if you believe you've been treated wrongly, state your point why you've been treated wrongly. If they will act on it, they act on it. But if they don't act on it, at least we know what you complained.
At least the next referee will know that these guys are capable of.
So the issue is, you are not trying to force the first hand, or you're not trying to push the next referee or manipulate the next referee into being biased for you, this time out against you. But the issue is that I personally believe, if you believe you've not been treated any way good in any situation, voice it out. Let the people know that you were not happy. If the people believe you should be happy about it, they'll come and explain to you why you shouldn't complain. But not complaining, I believe, has been an issue with Africans, and
the Minister of Education will tell you we are trained to be timid.
Yes.
We don't ask questions.
We don't ask questions. That is how we are. And it's about time we moved away from that. Let's see, that's the issue. Sometimes you talk. In Ghana, when you talk, you have to either you are too no or you are not respectful.
But Theodora, what's your own view on the petition? Do you think it's necessary?
I don't think it's necessary. I honestly don't think it's necessary.
Especially when it doesn't have any bearing on the results.
No, that's
well, I tend to understand some way somehow, because sometimes you never know. some form of evidence may come up to show that it was deliberate.
Yeah.
When you don't petition within the stipulated period, and it turns out that it was deliberate, you don't have a case. Then it means you've missed your chance. So once we have petition within the stipulated time, if tomorrow it turns out that probably he's linked to some betting company or something somewhere might have, then it gives us the opportunity to get whatever is deserving of us. So
another issue too is the PR that started with the game and everything. He was going to score in his fit in the street World Cup and all that. There was a whole PR about it. And I personally believe certain things can influence sometimes the officials into giving certain things
to make it work.
Make it work.
Yeah.
So
that's
I personally believe FIFA should also look at the commercialization of the World Cup.
So
it's getting a bit too much.
Okay, so we will look at our prediction for the next game and what your ideal team should be. But before then, Tedora, what's your own take around Ronaldo scoring in his 5th successive World Cup?
Well, for me, I think that it was a setup. Yes, it's like, let's try and make this work so that he's the first person to have scored in 5 World Cups. That's what they were trying to achieve. And so any way possible, let's make it happen. That's why I said that I find the penalty awarded very fishy. Yes, so it was like, let's make it happen. So anything to make it happen, we had to do it for CR7 to get it.
Scoring in 5 World Cups, you think he doesn't deserve any accolades?
He does deserve accolades, but even the man of the match that he got, I think he did. Yeah, I think it could have been given to Fernandes.
And who? So you think Fernandes was your man of the match?
Yeah.
And who was your man of the match?
Probably I was too pissed too. I was too angry or pissed too. Actually.
Well, I mean, I also agree that I could have gone to any other person.
But Ronaldo, no.
Yeah.
Even Silva.
Calvin De Bruyne coming out to say that he was surprised to be awarded man of the match.
Yeah.
It raises eyebrows, and I think he deserves a lot of commendation for being fair and frank. Every good player assess themselves and they know when they are doing well and when they're not doing well. One would have thought that such a feedback would shape the decision of who becomes man of the match. But just after, we see Ronaldo getting man of the match when in actual sense.
But check the list since it started. Most of the players who've gotten it are not really deserving. They are just big names.
They are just big names.
So the PR is more. It seems the PR is. The issue is when
they are adding to the controversy surrounding
the
Okay, so Ghana plays South Korea next, and we will do our own predictions. But before the predictions, team, who will be in goal? Let's pick it one after the other. Or you prefer to name your 11 straight up?
I personally believe we have a very good team and any 11 can do well. Just that our tactics should be very good on that day. And
so you don't have preference?
I don't have preference.
I don't necessarily have a preference, but we shouldn't make the mistake of playing Jordan and Ayew together. Never. It shouldn't happen. And I think this time around too, they play family football. This is not what we need at this time. We are not playing family football yet. The team is not for your family. And then also, I think he shouldn't start Ayew and Kudus at the same time. He should try and switch it. And then if he's starting Williams, he should try and change the formation such that William is being fed, and then William should improve on his running. I think we'd go.
Okay, so who will be in goal? Same goalkeeper, I'm sure.
Same goalkeeper.
And right back, Lamptey or Alidu.
Right back. I'll go for Lamptey. I personally believe we should probably go for the same formation, but we should have offensive-minded wing backs. Because I believe the quickness of the South Koreans, as in their speed, it's actually a good reason why to play 5 back, but we might make a
should
mistake
that
of playing
not
4
be
other.
a reason for us to repeat what we did with Portugal. But I would rather agree with him
The issue is
against
that
South Korea playing a 5-stack strong defense lineup because of the speed of the South
the
Koreans.
players.
Other than
no,
against
the issue is that they are quick, but we can recover.
okay.
If you pick Amata is very quick. Jiku is not the fastest, but if you are in the middle, you are usually running straight lines, so
Sure.
it's not really an issue. And I believe Salisu is very quick.
Yeah.
They can recover. So you need players who can move forward and probably come back when they have to. I believe playing Alidu and Baba Rahman would probably cement the defense for Bai to be a waste.
Yes.
Because I personally believe the Koreans might be quick, but they might not be that clinical. So I personally believe the 3 central defenders, even if we were brave like the Italians, I believe the 3 central defenders would have been okay. And rather play midfield.
I will never subscribe. I would prefer a 4-back with Jiku on the bench. And like I always say, as a coach, if you look at your bench, you should have some confidence. If you have Edu and Jiku as centre back substitutes, you should give you confidence.
Yeah.
Don't force and play all of them because
That's a point, yeah.
Play 4-back, play Partey in the number 8 position, not the DM. Okay, so that he gets the opportunity to also support the attack.
Can I ask you a
Salis
question?
is not bad.
Was he really a DM in our game?
Practically.
What wasn't Salis Ahmed actually doing that job?
But you see, when you look at the setup, Partey was missing. He was practically it was more or less a double pivot.
The issue is that he was supposed to find players for us, but he didn't really do a good job. That's what I believe. But I believe Samed or Salis was actually.
Salis has really cemented his place as our number 1 DM. If at any point in time you think Partey is not strong or is not performing, we saw what Elisha did in the test game. We also have other very good midfielder, central attacking midfielders in the team.
I personally believe his confidence in the players around him actually leads him to me. The issue is if you're a new player in the team and you're playing with Partey and the rest, he's kind of have belief in them more. So he was playing some risky passes to them. And I believe probably he needs to learn quick. It's not about the player next to you, it's about doing the right thing and doing the simple things.
Sure.
I always believe in simple things. Do the simple thing and move forward. The exuberance sometimes is not needed.
Okay, so your predictions?
Minka.
It's a must win. I mean, Korea game is a must win.
Okay.
But I mean, the fact that it's a must win doesn't mean that if you believe you can't win, you should force and say we are winning.
We should win. And probably we
Are you going to see more goals like we saw in the Portugal game?
We would score, but if you score early, it might be just 1-0. If it's a late show, we can get 2 or 3. But if I believe, based on the mentality of the player from the bench, the mentality of the bench is to defend. So if you score an early goal, we'll defend and might end in 1-0 and probably will win 1-0. If it travels to 70th minute, we'll bring offensive players in trying to get a goal and might get 2 or more.
So you are confident that Ghana is winning?
We'll win.
My best bet is a draw.
A draw? Oh, too bad. Well, I am foreseeing another 3-2 score, but this time around in favor of Ghana. So on that occasion, shoot.
Ghana 2, South Korea 1. Best of luck.
Ghana 2, Korea 0. Best of wishes.
Ghana 3, Korea 2. We're getting our first 3 points. Shoot.